people, but also making for a better city. And I know that when Milton and Sylvia individually decided to take on the effort of establishing a permanent patrol here in the Chinatown area, that Corky Lee became sort of our confidant, our consigliere, helping us navigate the waters, not to offend one group versus another group, help to explain what we were trying to do. Obviously, as an accomplished photojournalist, taking many of the pictures that were then utilized in terms of his own journalism to be able to explain to the Chinese American community what our intent was, why we were here, especially in the aftermath of what had transpired in Wuhan about this time, a year ago. Remember, we learned about this disease that had ravaged an area in mainland China called Wuhan. And they were getting prepared for the annual lunar Chinese parade right through Mott Street. It's what everybody looks forward to each and every year. But already we were seeing, even before the parade, that there were attacks on Chinese Americans. There were attacks on Asians. There were attacks on any people who looked like they might be Chinese. Because some of our fellow Americans, whether they were emotionally disturbed, whether they were homeless, whether they were young toughs, young thugs, drinking too much, drugging too much, decided that it was Chinese people who were transporters of coronavirus. And so they began attacks. There were verbal attacks, there was intimidation. Many of the first attacks occurred right here at the Canal Street station, where you see the J train merge with the N and the R and the 6 train. And it was brought to our attention. And I remember we had discussions. What is it that we should do? Already Milton and Sylvia were in the process of organizing the patrol here, and many of you are in chronic of exactly the prospecting that they were doing. Many of you have come from outside of this community, but some of you actually joined from within the community. And that was all part of the spirit of Corky Lee, because he helped guide us all through this process. He was there for us when we needed advice. He's been there for other Chinese American causes and other Asian causes at great expense to himself. You could call Corky Lee and he'd be there. And he'd be there to guide you. He'd be there to help you. He'd be there to photo what you were doing. And as a journalist, share that information. So, there's no better friend that we've had in this community, the Chinese American community, than the Asian community. And with his passing of Corky Lee, you really lose a great Chinese American, a great citizen of New York City, and more importantly, a citizen of the world. So at this moment, let's give him an ovation now that he has passed into the hereafter. It also reminds me that oftentimes somebody gets a tribute once they're dearly departed. You really don't spend enough time telling them how important they have been to our cause, to their own community, and to society at large. You may have remembered we had assembled here in the park. We were going up to Washington Square Park. We were having a vigil. A number of our friends and confidants in the Chinese American community, in partnership with existing Chinese American and Asian American efforts, because of all the prejudice that was being exhibited against them because of the growing menace of coronavirus, already now embedded at that time in New York. And remember, the body count was horrific. People were being put on ventilators, 80% of whom would die. People that we knew that were friendly were getting sick. And we really didn't know what to do. Now, we held the line as guardian angels. We took care of the poor, the indigent. We took care of the elderly. We took care of the emotionally disturbed and homeless, where others dare not tread because they were too intimidated, too frightened. And now, even though coronavirus is with us, seem to have better managed the situation. People are not as frightened, as intimidated as they were, remember, when we went into our lockdown in March. But I will tell you this, Corky Lee was with us every step of the way. Where others decided they would not tread out there, it was too dangerous, and we respect that. Not Corky Lee. And in fact, if you remember that time we assembled for the vigil, we left here in tandem with the other Chinese Americans, Asian Americans. We walked down that side street. Corky was doing his job, taking the photos, writing the information. And remember, he ended up pushing his head up, and it was like a stanchion from the store impaled him right in the head, and down he went. And if you remember, he was bleeding profusely. The ambulance came, took him away, and I remember one of the final things he said, let the vigil carry on. Remember that? Let the vigil carry on. Don't stop here because I'm injured. And that was just a testament to Corky Lee. So remember, as we assemble here today to commemorate his life and times, to commemorate his friendship towards us, the fact that he was with us through thick and thin, he knew our history. In fact, Corky Lee was one of the few who actually knew that I had come down here with a contingent in late 1979 because of problems the community was having with the notorious, treacherous Goat Shadows gang who was shaking down local merchants. And there was ongoing battles in the streets. You remember that? He was a great historian. He definitely understood what the Guardian Angels had done in the past and were doing now. So we lose a great friend, we lose a great ally, we lose someone who was always giving us tactical air support. But understand this, hopefully, in his footsteps, in his image, because we know he wasn't an I and me kind of guy. He mentored a lot of young people. You remember seeing all the Asian and Chinese American young men and women who would listen to Corky. He was their mentor. He would sort of straighten them out, give them focus, how to deal with their own community and the external community. Hopefully, for the loss of Corky Lee, there will be many others to follow. But I would suggest Milton, Sylvia, and everyone else here that in our continuing patrols of the Chinatown area, of 8th Avenue in Brooklyn, of Flushing in Queens, that each and every time we do it as we memorialize our friend, our supporter, Corky Lee. But let's just take a moment of silence in his honor. Sylvia, I have to go and do a radio program at 2. It's all now. I'm just going to take my son Anthony with me. We'll continue on in his village, this west.